Hello there, and welcome to the English Language Club. It's Tuesday afternoon, which means it's time for our little hangout meeting. I am Colin Munro, and I'm joined by Tony Culper. Yes, and we've got a few people online already. Mudasir, he's been there for like an hour already, I saw. So, got some very keen people. Susanta, as always, is with us, and Mandolin as well. And Jorge Lopez, good morning from Guatemala City. Great. Well, as always, get your questions coming in. Well, actually, we've already had one question from Mudasir. He was saying, what is the difference between impossible and not possible? So, what's... Yeah. I mean, as off the top of my head, I'm thinking, really, they mean the same thing, but I'd be more likely to say impossible most of the time. But I'm trying to think, is there a rule or a guideline about when you would use not possible? Maybe to be more emphatic, just to emphasize that is not possible.
That's one way you could do it, except that impossible certainly is stronger. Like that's one of the stronger words we have for negating something. Like that's impossible, right? So yeah, I think it's just a subtle different emphasis. Depends on the kind of the flow of the sentence. Like if you were telling someone that's just not possible, that'd be more likely than saying, well, that's just impossible, when you're using it with the word just or things like that. But for the most part, I think those are pretty interchangeable.
Yeah. Yeah,
they're both strong in different ways, really.
Yeah. I just think I'm more likely to use the word impossible.
Impossible is way more common for sure. Yeah.
Great. Well,
we actually have a couple of people that aren't new or with us last week, but are maybe new regulars. Armin Abrahamian and Frank Gonzalez. Frank Gonzalez, you've been with us for a few weeks. And hi to Rima. Good to see you guys. And Nguyen, nice to see you. Nguyen's been with us for
a long time.
Weeks and weeks.
One of the oldest followers. Great. Yeah. Well, there's a question from Armini. Which is right? Have I a pen or do I have a pen? And I have a cat, haven't I? Or have I a cat, don't I? Or I have a cat, don't I? Okay, now this is actually a great question because this ties in a lot with our course Inside English, which we are currently writing. And these live streams are originally about sort of keeping you guys up to date with the development of this course, which is going to be coming out soon. It's taken a little bit longer than we had anticipated, which is why we've sort of gone off onto other topics in the live streams. But yes, we're writing a grammar course, and it's focusing on tenses and how English actually works. What's the logic behind it? Because we often think, it's really complicated and things. And there are things that make it complicated, but underneath all of that, there is also a logic and things that do make sense. And so this is a great question, because one of the things that's really important is auxiliary verbs when you're talking about tenses. So, and this is essentially a question about auxiliary verbs, at least the first part. So, which is right? Have I a pen or do I have a pen? So, have I a pen is wrong. That is not a question, because you're not starting with... A question needs to start with either a question word, what, where, when, why, or an auxiliary verb, like do I have a pen? Do is the auxiliary verb for the present simple tense. So, and it's a very common mistake. I often hear this question. Teacher, what means this or what means that? When they're asking for a translation or an explanation. It's such a common question to ask, but people
an important question,
but people always get it wrong, and I always try to correct people. So you should say, what does something mean?
Yes.
So yeah, do I have a pen is right.
Do I have a pen?
And then
so that's the same actually thing going on with the second one, with the haven't I, or don't I? When you are kind of using something as a question without the actual verb, you use the auxiliary verb. So don't I is the short form of, do I not have a cat, right? Whereas haven't I is archaic. And now when you would use haven't I in this case is if have were actually the auxiliary verb. So if you were, instead of asking, if you ask, have I brought a pen, or have I brought a pen, then you could say, I have brought a pen, haven't I? Because have is now the auxiliary verb. And so you use the auxiliary verb first for a question, and in the shortened form, you just use the auxiliary verb, haven't I? Right.
Yeah, now I think this is often referred to as question tags. As a sort of, that's what the grammatical structure that we're talking about here is often referred to as. So you can sort of almost like just make a positive statement. You like spaghetti, and then say, don't you? So you say
yes,
and it's basically just the auxiliary verb and the subject
and not.
The auxiliary.
And it's not, even though that's asked as a negative question, that doesn't mean that you're really asking it as a negative. You're asking for confirmation. So that kind of medical tab is really, medical question tag is really common, but it's usually framed negatively. Yeah. So when in doubt, don't forget to put the auxiliary verb first when you're asking a question, right? You can put the question word like who or what, but don't forget to put the auxiliary verb first. This is kind of one of our key ideas for making tense and English make sense.
Yeah, I've just seen Criminal Jati is online, and you're one of the people who are asking for medical terms. So that's what we've got some lined up to talk about today, and it's actually the ones that you suggested. So we'll get onto that a little bit later. Manu is asking a question about Edgar Allan Poe, but you've made the mistake that we were just talking about. You've said why Edgar Allan Poe's stories are so tough to understand. So you're missing the auxiliary verb there in that question. You need to say why are Edgar Allan Poe's questions so tough to understand? Tony, are you familiar with Edgar Allan Poe's?
I love Edgar Allan Poe, and I will absolutely agree with you, Manu. It is one of the tougher works to understand, and part of that, it's not ancient English, but it is old. It's an older English, but it's also because he's writing it. Edgar Allan Poe, his style is very difficult to follow, and so some of it is just because it's old, though it's not as old as something like Shakespeare or Beowulf. It's in a completely different language for it's so old. But yes, it is very challenging. And some authors' styles are just really challenging. And so don't feel bad, because native English speakers, even very well-educated native English speakers, find those more difficult to read. That doesn't mean it's not very rewarding. I love Edgar Allan Poe, but yes, he is challenging. No. So reading him with a dictionary is a good idea. Also, because sometimes even you can understand every word in a sentence by an author like Poe and still not really be clear on what's going on. So sometimes it's good to have a companion. Poe's work is popular enough that you can find online. You can find explanations of everything that's going on in any of his stories or poems. So it's easy enough to kind of look up the words you don't know, and if you still don't understand it, Google the question, and you should be able to find out what's going on. But don't give up. That's pretty cool that you're reading Poe. It's impressive.
Great. Well, Balbal says hi, and AJ from Monaco says hi. So hi to you guys.
Good to see you again.
Jorge Lopez says, what about deep and deeply, as both can be used as adverbs? So most of the time, deep is an adjective. So you could say the water is deep, or you would say I swim deeply, or I love you deeply. So that's the adverb.
Well, see, swimming deeply, I'm not sure if that's even correct, because your deep is when you swim in the deep, right? That's where you're swimming, right? I swam deep means like that's what you swam into.
But I love you deeply.
I love you deeply, definitely. Yes, right. I feel deeply about this issue, right? Yes, so deeply, definitely an adjective. Sorry,
adverb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely an adverb.
What about deep though? How can deep be an adverb? Can it be an adverb? Can you give us an example?
So the classic would be like I dove deep into the water.
I dove
right?
deep. Yeah.
Because you wouldn't say I dove deeply into the water. That wouldn't be apropos.
I think it's one of those things where it's wrong, but people have done it enough that it's become right or accepted.
I think it's sort of a I'm not sure. It's being used to say where something has happened, which is not something an adverb normally does. Or to
an extent. Yeah, I would just say stick to the traditional meaning of sort of deep being an adjective and deeply being the adverb.
Yeah.
You're talking about a fringe situation, a fringe use.
That's one of the weird exceptions. I think.
It's a weird exception. Yeah. Okay, so
earlier,
go on.
Mudasir asked about the time ranges for saying good morning, good afternoon, and good night. So now this is something that in a couple of the different countries I've gone and lived in, they've schooled me on the exact timings for this. And I think this is actually a little bit different in English, because, for instance, good night, you don't say good night to somebody when you meet them, for instance. Good night is only a way to say goodbye. You could say good evening as a greeting, but good night only means goodbye. Also, we don't say good noon. We might say good afternoon.
And also, on the flip side of that, you normally you wouldn't say good morning if you're saying goodbye. That would only be a greeting.
Correct.
Most
that's only going to be used as a greeting. Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit like, for one, these are not as common, good morning, good afternoon, as a simple like hello. Whereas in some languages, this is the default, right? Like you say good morning or good afternoon as the basic greeting. Whereas in English, it's more like hello.
Yeah.
Good morning is a very common greeting, and good night can be a common, farewell at the end of the day when someone's leaving to go home or whatever.
Yeah. So I think obviously good morning is easy, because if it's the morning you can say good morning, and good afternoon, well, is easy as well, because if it's afternoon, after 12 o'clock you can say good afternoon.
Yes.
But in the later afternoon it gets a little more ambiguous, because then it starts to overlap. So basically the question is, when does afternoon become night?
And there's no definitive for that, the way there is in some languages, where the language authority says after this time it becomes bonsoir or whatever.
But I would say around 6 as a general rule.
I think generally speaking, once it's been a few hours after work hours are over. That's when you generally switch to good evening. Yeah. Also, good evening is more commonly used in like things like leisure activities, like when you're in at a restaurant or at a movie theater, as opposed to good afternoon is more used at work, just because those are more typical sort of venues for that.
Yeah.
But the honest answer is that it's more flexible in English than it is in some of the other languages that I've seen this question come up in. And so you'll often have people that will good-naturedly argue over whether it's afternoon or morning, or whether you should be saying good evening or good afternoon, because there's not a very strict definition for it.
Okay, so Win says, today I met the word poaching. Is it popular to use on a daily basis? So the word poaching, is that a common word? It is.
Poaching is, I hear it often enough in certain contexts. It's not something that everyone's always going to be using. But for instance, if you work in a business that has clients, then poaching is really common. Poaching, the word used to mean hunting, and it still means this, hunting where it's not legal to hunt, or when it's not legal to hunt. So hunting out of season, or hunting on someone else's property without their permission. But now, I think more commonly, it's used to mean taking a client from somebody else. So, for instance, if I started my own YouTube channel to talk about English, and I told everyone, hey, you should come to my YouTube channel, that would be poaching. I'd be trying to get all of you to go and watch my channel instead of Colin's channel. And, of course, I wouldn't do that.
Well, hang on a minute, though. That's a little bit different, because I kind of think that's okay. Like, YouTubers often collaborate, and for that exact reason, to sort of share subscribers, because it's not as if when someone subscribes to your channel, who's one of my subscribers, that I lose them as a subscriber. They can be subscribed to both of our channels. They can be
subscribed to both. Absolutely.
And there are lots of other channels that I would recommend my subscribers subscribe to. Pronunciation with Emma.
That's still, I think,
She's
what
a good friend
poaching
of mine.
is. Yeah, absolutely. And so you talk about this a lot in, like, if you tutors or people who work in advertising or even doctors, people talk about people poaching their clients all the time. Also, the one about hunting can also refer to just hunting things that you're not allowed to hunt. Like, it shows up in the international news fairly often about people that are hunting lions in Africa, or back in the day, people hunted. It still happens, but people hunt elephants for their ivory, and that's illegal almost everywhere, and so it's poaching.
Yeah. It is a common word to answer the question, but obviously in specific contexts.
Yes.
Yeah. So Win then also asks, can we use recommended doing or recommend to do? For example, if you could only do one thing in Vietnam, I would recommend you going to the float market. Now, I would recommend you going. I don't think that doesn't sound right.
So the way this works is both to recommend going and recommend do but are both valid constructs. But you would say, when you say recommend doing something, doing is the kind of the object of the verb. You just say, I recommend going to the float market or whatever. But when you use instead of the ing, you use the base form of the verb. You've got to imagine the word that in there. Sometimes the word that is necessary, sometimes it's not. So if you say, I would recommend that you go to the float market. So you would either say, I recommend going without a you, because you're not making a new sentence here. So the go doesn't have a subject. I recommend going to the float market. Or you say, I recommend that you go to the float market. And then it's like you're kind of starting a mini sentence there with the word that. And sometimes the word that is left out. So you will hear people say something like, I recommend you go to the float market. Really, grammatically, the word that is just kind of left off, like a contraction. It still needs to be there for the sentence to make sense grammatically, but we sometimes just leave it out, don't say it. So both recommend doing something and recommend that you do something are both very common. Now, recommend to, like I recommend to go to the float market, is certainly not common. There might be situations where it would work. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but that's not normally the way you do it. One of those two ways. Recommend doing something or recommend that you do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very good question, though, man.
Yeah, and it's a common thing when when you use the sort of infinitives or ing forms after certain words.
Yes.
So yeah, good question.
And that's a good kind of model with you either use the ing or the word that for lots of different verbs that you can do this. It's a good kind of a generic pattern. Either you use the ing or you use the word that.
Yeah. And then similarly, it sounds like when you are working as a tourist guide or something, because you've got another question here. What is the difference between it's located in the north of Vietnam or it's located to the north of Vietnam? So what's the difference between in the north and to the north? I guess it's relative to where you are. If because if you're very far south, then everything is to the north. So something could be in the south of the country, but it's still to the north of you. So they're very similar in meaning, but it sort of depends on it's relative to your actual location. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So if the question is, for instance, you're asking, what's the difference of talking about something that is in the northern part of Vietnam or something that's not in Vietnam, that's farther north than that, like China, I guess. So there's a couple of different constructs that we say this. So for instance, if you're talking about the north part of something, you don't usually use the word of. So you sometimes do. So you hear about talking about the north of England, but most of the time you just use north or northern. So northern England. The northern U.S. So you could talk about North Vietnam or Northern Vietnam more likely. So then if you want to say that something is further north than that, or the same for further south, so you could say south of Vietnam is the ocean. Whereas if you say the south of Vietnam, you're talking about the southern part of Vietnam, right? So to use a description that because I'm not super familiar with the geography of Vietnam, I'm afraid of saying one of the cities wrong, so I'll use the U.S. In the south of the U.S. is Florida. Okay, so in the south, so I'm talking about a part of the U.S., the south of the U.S., in the south of the U.S. is Florida. But south of the U.S., see, not the word the, south of the U.S. is the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean and so on. So you use the word the to like the south of something or the north of something to say it's part of it, but without the word the, you're talking about past it. So north of the U.S. is Canada, north of Vietnam is China, and so on.
And so also when you say to the north, you're sort of saying beyond. You can be saying beyond, because I could say Canada is to the north of the United States.
That's true. That is true. So to the is another one that specifically means not inside but outside, and that's the question of whether you're talking about inside of a place or outside of a place. There's all sorts of little differences, and primarily because the reason it's so tricky is because these are prepositions that we're dealing with, and prepositions are always a little fiddly.
Exactly. Yeah. It's. I mean, we could talk about prepositions all day and still not cover it
for several days.
Yeah, I mean, I think with prepositions, what you need to do is narrow in on a very specific use, and then look at the situation, and then look at the different prepositions you can use. And there are sort of dozens of situations like that. So we'd have to do a whole series of live streams on prepositions really to cover it properly. But I hope that's helpful. Now Jorge actually now clarifies what we were talking about with the deep and deeply with the as adverbs and adjectives, and he says I walk deep into the forest or deeply into the forest. And so I suppose that is I walked deep into the forest. That isn't using it as an adverb, isn't it? Using deep as an adverb, even though deep is really an adjective.
I mean, honestly, I think it's modifying the preposition. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, you
because you
mean
can talk
into,
about deep into the
deep
forest,
into.
even
Oh,
if
you're
you're not
right. Yeah.
using.
So deep. Yeah,
Yeah,
deep into the forest.
and yeah.
So
So,
yeah. So in that sentence, deep is not affecting the verb. It's really affecting the
it's
preposition.
affecting
Is what you're saying.
and so I don't think you would say deeply into the forest. Um,
No.
we were deep in the forest, or we went deep into the forest, but I don't think you would say deeply into the
Mm,
forest.
mm. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's because it's yeah, like you said, affecting the preposition rather than the
The
verb.
preposition, yeah.
Good explanation. Okay, let's see now. One on preposition. Number one. When I tried to pronounce th and th, like they and their and those and that, as you told in the video, it's quite hard because in my native language, we pronounce these two sounds differently. My tongue touch the upper teeth. Yeah, so well, those are what we call a paired consonant. So
Yes.
or paired consonants. So the only difference is that one is voiced and one is not voiced. So when I say as in thing, that is not voiced. But when I say that, it is voiced. So it's and this, that, and thing. Yeah, it's important, yeah, that your tongue touches your upper teeth, like you say. But are you also saying, kind of going, are you also using your vocal cords? Just quickly, can you just let us know? Can you see us okay? Is everything all right with the stream? I'm not sure if everything's working properly, so just let us know in the chat if everything is okay. I think everything's okay. I think people seem to be okay. Yeah, my camera's lagging. We're on a delay. Voice is lagging.
Yeah, you are. You are like your voice is lagging behind, even for me.
Okay. I'm not quite sure why that is. I'll have a fiddle around. Tony, if you want to carry on reading through some of the comments, if there are many more, and I'll just see what I can do.
Yeah, so we definitely have some more. Let me see. Let's find out where we were. So R.W. Aravind saying that you've learned a lot from our videos and love from India. That's great. We're so excited that we've been able to help. Lolly Lolly, hello again from France, to France for us. Barath is asking to differentiate the use of can and could. And I always get confused while typing. Yes, this is a pretty common thing to be confused about. So when you're saying that can is always like, the ability to do something. You can talk about this. You can say, I can lift a certain amount, or you can say, I can't. And you're talking about things that really are. When you use the word could, though, you're into the realm of we call it the subjunctive or the optional. Basically, you're talking about something that may not actually be the case. So you could say, I could go get you a glass of water, but I don't want to. You're talking about something that is hypothetical. It may not actually happen. Even though you could say it the same way. I can get you a glass of water, but I'm not going to. But when you use can, you're just talking about whether something is possible or not. When you talk about could, you're now saying, hey, this is a hypothetical situation, or it might be something that might happen or it might not happen, right? So sometimes they're kind of the same, but could is in that realm of the it maybe not. How's your voice, Colin? Did you find it again? Capture it, pin it down?
I have noticed what you were saying about me lagging, me being out of sync, but it seems to be.
It seems fine now.
It seems better now. So
it seems fine to me.
I didn't change.
Yes.
I didn't change anything. So hopefully it will stay.
Let us know on the stream if it's working better for you as well.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the medical terms. Now,
yes, let's do some medical terms.
Yeah. So before, what I said in the previous when we were talking about this before is that I said I thought this would be better for Instagram. Just sort of covering vocabulary. And this is going to go on my Instagram. And in this stream, in the description of this video, you'll see a link to the Instagram. I've had my own Instagram for a long time, and I've done English teaching through that. But now I'm trying to develop the actual English Language Club Instagram. So if you do use Instagram, make sure you go and follow the account which I've put in the description. So these are going to be Instagram posts this week. So I'll just bring up the first one, which is doctor. So doctor. I've got some emojis there. Can you see that yet, Tony?
Yes.
On the screen?
Yep.
Yeah. So doctor. I think that's quite an easy word. It's got the schwa on the end, so even though it's got that OR, we don't say doctor, we just say doctor. But it does have the O sound as the second letter, so that is more the British spelling. I guess in an American accent, you're more likely to say doctor, like.
I don't know about that. Doctor.
Doctor.
Doctor. It's still an O. Yeah, doctor.
But it's not O.
Yeah.
It's not doctor. It's doctor.
Doctor.
Well, anyway, that's the difference between British English and American English, or one of the differences. That's the main difference on this word. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Nurse. So nurse. Again, quite a common word. It has that sound in the middle. Now I can imagine people saying nurse, which that would be a common mispronunciation of this word. So it's, even though it's a U, because this is a very English is not consistent with the pronunciation of the vowels, and this is one of the less, the larger deviations from what you would, from that sound. It's not nuus. It's almost like it should be spelt with an er instead of a u.
Well, I think this is actually very common in English. Generally speaking, a short vowel followed by an R you're pretty much only pronouncing the R. It's usually going to be schwa, or in American English, schwa R. The vowel sound itself doesn't really get pronounced along with an R when it's a short vowel. Yeah.
Okay, next word. No, that's the same word. Next word is drug. Drug. So now drug is a, it can be a medical word, but it's also, you have illegal drugs. You talk about illegal drugs as well as medical drugs. So it's strange that they have the same word to mean those, something that is supposed to be good for you and something that is bad for you.
Well, drug is just kind of an old word for medicine, really.
Yeah.
And so before there were legal determining factors on who was allowed to sell medicine and who wasn't, anybody could make a medicine. And so that's kind of where they've come from. People would often, things like a lot of illegal drugs were originally sold as medicines before they were determined to be unsafe.
Yeah, but even now, actually, a lot of people misuse medicines, and then
absolutely,
drugs.
Yeah.
Okay, so operation. So this is a longer word, operation. Again, though, it's got that O sound, the O letter. So how would you say this, Tony? I'll say it and then you say it, and we can see if there's a difference. Operation. Yeah, so there is a difference. I don't know if anyone can detect it, but you are saying more of a ah operation. I'm probably exaggerating it there, but and I'm more of an o, right?
Maybe so. Yeah. Operation. Operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got that diphthong sound, the a operation,
Yes.
operation. Great. Now, operation isn't necessarily only a medical term as well. That can also be used in
For sure.
for sort of in computer programming. It's like an activity.
Yeah,
Sort
or
of
lots of different things. An operation, we talk about that. The military makes operations. An operation is some task that needs to be fulfilled. Is really all it means in general English. Whereas in medical English, it specifically means usually cutting things open and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, speaking of cutting things open, the next word we have is scissors. Scissors. I like this word. It's got lots. It's sort of got the S and the Z sound. S and the Z. Sorry. Well, it's a Z sound, but it's the letter Z if you're British, the letter Z if you're American. And this is another great example of paired consonants, because the S and the Z are paired consonants.
Yes.
So if you look at the shape of my mouth when I say the two words S and Z, it's the same. It's just that the Z is voiced and the S is not voiced. So yeah, it's quite fun to say that word, scissors.
Scissors, yes. So Susanta is bringing this up, and this has actually been in a couple of words. Like where has the R gone in scissor? So you when I say it, you hear the R, scissor, because again, R's after a vowel is something that's pronounced very differently in American English or Canadian English and British English. In American English, for instance, we tend to pronounce that R quite strongly, even when it's at the end of a word or after a vowel. So you hear that scissor. But when you say it...
Scissors. Scissor.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny, because obviously, as a noun, with the thing we're talking about, scissors, it's one thing, it's one tool, but it's a plural being used as a singular. It's like trousers.
Yes.
One trouser would mean it only goes on one leg, which would be useless. So it's like we never have the singular of the scissors. I guess one scissor would be like a knife.
Yes.
But you can use scissor as a verb.
As a verb, yes.
It's not usual. You'd normally just cut something with scissors. You wouldn't say, "I'm going to scissor this piece of paper."
It's more used dramatically when some flying piece of machinery scissors through something. It's not used as a typical description of using actual scissors.
Yeah. Great. Okay, now the next word we had requested is asthma. Asthma. So this is respiratory condition. Asthma. Yeah. I don't know if there's much to say about that. Starts with the sound. I get a lot of comments on my video about the sound, and a lot of them are people just misunderstanding that it's used differently in International Phonetic Alphabet than what it is in other languages, because it is that letter, that symbol is used in Norwegian and Danish, I think. So I get a lot of Norwegian people and Danish people telling me, "Oh, you're saying it wrong. I'm Norwegian, I should know." And it's like, well, yeah, you know how to use it in Norwegian, but you're not using it how it's used in the International Phonetic Alphabet.
I get the same issue with a lot of the symbols in the International Phonetic Alphabet come from Greek or Latin or other ancient languages that I know, but they're not pronounced the same way in the International Phonetic Alphabet as they are from obviously the language they got the symbol from, because those languages are where those symbols came from. But yeah, I don't know how the IPA chose how to associate what sound with what symbol, but they didn't do it based on all the different languages that use those symbols.
No. But then there's always going to be some conflicts. isn't?
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
So Mandolin Wu's pointing out with asthma that they say asthma with a Z sound, asthma. And that's true. Some people do say asthma. I say asthma, which is kind of like I'm trying to say the th a little bit, asthma.
Yeah.
But again, you get some variation on that. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a British or American English thing because I've heard different pronunciations in different from different places in the U.S. I think that this is just a word that it's kind of hard to say, and so people pronounce it differently.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it too much. It has some flexibility in terms of how people pronounce it.
Yeah, I think.
Now, I don't know.
I think both asthma.
Maybe in medical school they have a very definitive pronunciation for it, but not that I've ever heard.
Yeah, I think asthma and asthma are both right. I mean, I remember when I was at school, I knew a couple of other kids that had asthma, and they always used to say asthma rather than asthma.
Mhm.
So that's why I've always thought it. That's why I say asthma. But yeah, you can say asthma. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think either one is wrong or the other's right. Okay, the next word is a good one. It's a nice long one. Altruism. So altruism. Yeah. So what does altruism mean, Tony?
Altruism is when you do something just because it's good, not because it benefits you in some way.
So like a selfless act. So
yes,
working in medicine is quite altruistic. Is an act of altruism. So altruism is the noun form, right?
Yes.
And
altruism is a noun.
Yeah.
Altruistic is the adjective.
Is an adjective form of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Well, the next one is medicine. Now, I was looking this up in the phonetics script in the dictionary, and I saw that it had two different phonetic spellings. Now,
interesting.
Yeah. Now, if I was just saying the word on its own, I would say the bottom one of these two, which is medicine. Medicine. That's sort of closer to how it's spelled. But then, when I looked at the other one, I realized if I was just talking in a sentence, I'm more likely to say it, in the other way, which is medicine. Medicine. It's just you're sort of skipping the vowels just to make because you're speaking quickly and to make it easier. So yeah, people would say medicine rather than medicine. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Next one is.
Well, before we go to the next one, Susanta is asking if medicine and medication are the same. And so to talk about what medicine means, medicine can mean the same thing as drug or medication, right? The actual, the pill that you take or the chemical that the doctor prescribes you. But medicine also refers to the whole practice, like what a doctor does, what hospitals deal with. The whole discipline is called medicine.
Yeah,
right?
People go to study.
A computer scientist works with computers. A doctor works in medicine. Not talking about the drugs, not talking about the chemicals, but the whole discipline is medicine.
Yeah. But actually, she's saying about medication.
Right. So medicine and medication are the same thing when you're talking about the drug.
Yeah.
But medicine, it doesn't just refer to the drug, it also refers to the whole discipline.
Yeah. But then I think they are slightly different because somebody, I mean, maybe not in meaning, but in use. Like, I think some people might say, you could say, I'm on medication, or the doctor's put me on medication. But you're not so likely to say, I'm on medicine. Although it makes sense, and it grammatically and everything, it's right. It's just not sort of a collocation. So medicine exactly. And medication sort of collocate differently, even though they are both nouns, and grammatically they're the same. It's the collocation
for sure.
That's different.
Yes.
Yeah. And then finally, we've got one that's very relevant at the moment, which is virus. Virus. So that's got a diphthong in there, the I. Again, not vidus. I know that in some languages they have the equivalent word is this very similar, but they would pronounce virus. But we say virus, the I sound. So, yeah, that's all the words I've got for now. Those are going to go up on the Instagram, along with a bit of an explanation this week. So I'm going to make a few little quick videos about that. So, yeah, those will go up this week. And I was thinking that maybe from now on, as one of the segments of the live stream, that we could, ask for suggestions for the next week's load of vocabulary, or maybe not the next week, but some future.
We did get some more.
Yeah.
We got some quarantine, strangle, surgery, surgeon, drugstore, biopsy. So some of those were good. Contaminate, contagious. And yes, Nguyen, viral is the adjective of virus. So something about a virus would be called viral. Yes. Or things that act like a virus, like viral videos.
Hopefully.
Vial is different. Vial is not related to virus. A vial is like a small bottle.
Yes.
Virology is the study of viruses. Yes.
Yeah. Now, I don't want the Instagram to just be medical terms. It's just what we've got started with. So we're going to have to get some other suggestions for words. But yeah, I was thinking that each week we could have a section in the live stream where we can ask for suggestions for words. So if you have any other words you'd like to see you'd like to see spelled out and then a little video talking about it, let us know in the chat now, and I can get started on those, and we'll put them in the Instagram soon. Like I said, if you want to follow the Instagram, the link is in the description. So do that. And now somebody was asking about Facebook as well earlier. Maybe Susanna or
Susanna.
Yeah,
Facebook community. So
we do have a Facebook group. If you search English Language Club, I think the full name of the group, or in the officially, is English Language Club International. So yeah, join up there. Again, that's not been. It's I haven't used it very much, but yeah, let's try and get that community. Yeah, let's get that up and running again. I think that would be really good. So yeah, join us there, and we will we'll make something of that. That would be good. I mean, there's quite a lot of people in there are a lot of members, several thousand. So yeah, it'll be good to get that going again.
Yeah, for sure. Prophylactically, what a word. Prophylactic is fairly common. It means preventative medicine, but prophylactically is not super common.
Yeah. So let's see. Vamsi says, "Can we know when we can have the next session?" So Vamsi, I don't think I've seen you before. So you're very welcome if this is your first time. We do this, or we've been doing this every Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon UK time. So yeah, we do it every Tuesday. We've done it sort of 10. I don't know how long we've done it now. It's loads.
Weeks and weeks.
Weeks and weeks, months we've been doing it now. So, but yeah, our plan is to keep doing this on a Tuesday afternoon, to have this sort of hangout session that we call it. And the reason I call it hangout is just because we want it to be led by you, led by the comments. We're not coming with much of an agenda. Today we had these medical terms, but that's because they've been requested. People have been requesting them for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd do them today. But normally we want it to be mainly led by what you want to know. What are you struggling with in your studies at the moment? So that's what these sessions are all about. We're not here to teach anything specific. We're just hanging out, having fun. like friends, So
Once we're finished with the Inside English course, we might be ramping up the number of different activities we're doing.
Yes.
But we really kind of want to prioritize that as much as possible. We still are doing these Hangouts, but yeah, we might be able to do a lot more once we're finished with that.
Yeah. So just to give another quick update on Inside English, the grammar course that we are writing, it is, as I said, looking at grammar, but looking at how grammar makes sense, or how the tenses make sense. We're stripping away all the things that make it complicated, because I think this is the problem with how we teach and how you learn English, is that there's too many little things which we refer to as layers on top of the language.
Yes.
And those are what make things complicated. But actually, underneath all that, things make sense. It does make sense. There is a logic. It's just that. So this course is designed at people who already have a sort of intermediate level. So they've already gone through the more traditional framework for learning English. But now it's sort of a way to cover that sort of same material again, but from a slightly different angle, so that hopefully it can make more sense.
Make things kind of fit together so you can remember them. Yeah. So they makes it more natural.
Yeah. So it's focusing on tense and how auxiliary verbs and things. We're very close to having the first 4 modules written, and when the first 4 modules are written, then we're going to film them, and I think the course will go live with just the first 4 modules, and then we'll add to it later. But you will be able to sign up with just the first 4 when the first 4 modules are complete. So we're very close now to you being able to sign up to that. And if you are a English Language Club member on YouTube, you will get a sneak peek. We're going to do a sort of behind the scenes read through, so you'll get to see that if you are a member. And also, if members do get to. I made a few behind the scenes videos and things like that. Gasper's just joined us. He is one of our members. You can see that members get the little English Language Club logo next to their name in the chat. So that's another perk. And you get the behind the scenes videos. And as we grow and we get more and more members, I'm going to do more and more things. Hopefully one day we'll have thousands of members and we'll be able to do member only live streams and things like that. But for now, we're keeping everything open for everyone, just because of the size and things like that. But I'm pretty sure we are going to grow, and so it will become more important. So I think probably draw things to a close soon. We've got 15 likes so far. So if you haven't given this video a thumbs up yet, please do so now. That would be really helpful, not just for us but also for you. It will tell YouTube that you're interested in seeing more content like this. Yes. And hopefully YouTube will remind you when we go live next time, and it may remind other people that we exist as well. So it works. It's a win-win situation. So, great. Oh, now we're up to 20 likes. So thank you.
Oh,
great.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. So, well, thank you for watching then, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.